From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Good morning. This is day number 12 of the government shutdown, and it's set to last a little while longer.
The political gridlock over how to fund the government, it is continuing. Healthcare spending and insurance tax credits, they're at the center of this debate. And this week, more than one lawmaker from Georgia drove that point home. Democrats say any new spending bill should include an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies to prevent an increase in many Americans' insurance premiums. Republicans are pushing a stopgap proposal to keep the government funded at roughly its current levels. Now, Monday night, Georgia 14th District Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene posted on X saying in part that she was absolutely disgusted that health insurance premiums will double if the tax credits expire this year. She also said, though, that she is no fan of the Affordable Care Act. We asked her specifically where she stands.
The current system in place, which was passed by the Democrats in 2010, those credits do expire. And if they do expire, we're going to see millions of Americans' health insurance premiums double and even maybe upwards from that.
Now, Congressman Mike Collins, another Georgia Republican who is running for Senate now, he told reporters Tuesday night he was not aware of Congresswoman Greene's comments about the ACA subsidies, and he reiterated the GOP position that once the government is reopened, legislators can discuss health care policy.
This is about funding the government. That's it. This is a CR that the Democrats passed 13 times. This is a clean CR funding just to keep our government running while we continue to finish up the appropriation bills. If they want to argue about health care, they can bring that up on its own. You don't bring that up during the funding fight.
Well, Georgia Democrats in Congress, they sent a letter to the Speaker urging him to open the House and negotiate that health policy. This week, I asked Congresswoman Lucy McBath about her thoughts on what Mr. Collins was just saying there, wanting to pass a bill now and talk about health policy later.
I would really hope and pray that if the Republicans, and if this is what they're espousing, then actually come back to Washington, Speaker Johnson, call us back to have votes. Don't speak and then do nothing. You have to follow up with actions that truly represent what you really intend to do.
Now, will the House negotiate? That's still to be seen. Right now, this vote still lies in the Senate. Senators are not back in Washington until Tuesday, so it's unlikely the shutdown will be resolved before then.
Let's turn now to the 2026 campaign right here in Georgia. The Democratic field of contenders, it continues to grow. State Representative Ruah Roman, she is the latest to enter the governor's race. We talked one-on-one with the Duluth Democrat this week.
I'm running to build a movement. The reality is that for 20 years, Republicans have controlled our state, and in that time, hospitals have closed. Our minimum wage has stayed at $5.15 an hour, and even our education ranking has been getting lower. And the reality is the most immediate way we can change that is to change who's in power. And so I'm running to raise the minimum wage, take homes back from corporations, reopen hospitals, invest in small businesses, and feed hungry kids.
What is the #1 challenge facing Georgians right now, in your view?
Right now, it is the challenge of affordability. Everything is getting more expensive, and it's getting more expensive at the same time. Think about utility bills. They've skyrocketed. Think about the fact that even though everything is getting more expensive like food, wages have stayed the same, and we haven't really done much about it.
It's been roughly 2 decades since Democrats have controlled the governor's mansion in Georgia. How do you flip it now?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said I'm running to build a movement, right? I've firmly believe that the best way to reach voters and to change who's in power is one door, one conversation, and one person at a time. It was from the first campaign I ever volunteered for was Michelle Nunn Jason Carter campaign in 2014. And I remember very clearly after that first door knock getting really excited and saying, what if we actually talked to voters directly? What if we had those conversations with them and told them what we're fighting for and not just be timid about maybe we're a little bit better, but have aspirations that we're working towards?
You've been a vocal supporter of the New York City mayoral candidate, Zohran Mamdani. Do you see him as an example, as somebody who other Georgia younger candidates should emulate?
There's been a running joke that we're going to have one of those countdowns to his days since Zohran's been mentioned related to this campaign, since 0 and permanent marker. But I understand why people are making that comparison. And to be clear, what makes Zohran's campaign so appealing to a lot of us is that he used and leveraged sort of this new media environment, not just to gain notoriety or build a brand. What he did is he leveraged it to teach and educate the population about the process of voting, of campaigning, but then pulled in a sizable number of volunteers. I think they're at almost 90,000 volunteers. And what I tell people is if we can recruit 5,000 volunteers by the end of the primary, 15,000 by the end of the general, we're completely changing the dynamic of elections in a state like Georgia.
I think Democratic politics in particular are in some ways at an inflection point, or perhaps an inflection point. There are candidates like yourself who are floating a new theory in some ways of a candidacy. I've also heard from some people say right now in Georgia what Democrats need is a more traditional, moderate, centrist candidate. To people who raise that, what would you say to them in response?
There's that famous phrase that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And in this situation, I see it as no different. Our voters need to have something to just vote for, not just vote against. And I think oftentimes we think that if we just put in the most middle-of-the-road candidate, which, by the way, I don't know what middle-of-the-road means. When you talk to voters, every voter considers themselves a moderate until you talk to them about an issue they're really passionate about. And the coalition we're trying to build, the things we are really passionate about, are things that impact the most number of Georgians. And so when they say, let's just lean into another traditional candidate, let's just go to someone who we think can pull from here, the numbers aren't bearing that out. What ends up happening is for every sort of one of those elusive voters that we might win, we're actually losing 3 of our own to the couch, not even to the opposition, but to the couch. And it breeds this, I tell people all the time, our greatest opposition isn't necessarily other candidates or Republicans, it's cynicism. Too many people have felt like nothing's going to change. But I mean, how amazing would it be if we did make that change happen?
You might have noticed you saw a lot of the back of my head there. That's because the camera on me went down. Thankfully, it was the least important one, the one on me. You can see much more of our interview, the full interview with State Representative Ruah Roman, streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. You can always download it for free.
And you guys get Zach's face right here.
Here I am.
And we're going to bring in some other faces right now with our political roundtable. Today we have Stephen Lawson, a Republican communications strategist who served as a senior communications advisor to House Speaker John Burns. He's also worked for Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and Congressman Mike Collins. Democratic strategist Fred Hicks, the founder and president of the Hicks Evaluation Group, which has worked with hundreds of political campaigns for nearly 20 years. And from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, chief politics reporter Greg Bluestein, also an author and contributor to MSNBC and NBC News, all returning panelists. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us. I want to start off with the conversation that we just saw with Ms. Roman and Zach. I want to start off with you, Fred, talking about kind of her positioning. A lot of people see her as a progressive. Some people say that a moderate candidate will win the the statewide primary. But when you come to the Democratic primary, are we looking more at a moderate candidate, or do you need somebody that is a little bit more progressive? Democrats say they want to fight her right now.
Well, I think you can have both. I think you can have someone who has fiery rhetoric but has a moderate record. And I think that's what Democrats really want. And that's we look at in the past. We look at Senator Warnock making out of his jungle primary, or Senator Ossoff when he ran against. Oh my gosh! When he ran against Teresa Tomlinson and Sarah Rita Miko, right? In the primary there, so you had someone who spoke really well, but was moderate with their policies. And I think that's really the combination to winning not just the Democratic primary, but winning Georgia overall in November.
And Greg, obviously you've covered Georgia politics many, many, many years. This is a season we are in where there are a lot of candidates on the Democratic side and the Republican side in the gubernatorial, and then we have the Republican Senate primary happening too. Who's the big winner when you have these big crowded primary fields?
Yeah, I mean, think about just a few cycles ago when there was almost no options, right? Herschel Walker was the steamroller who demolished his Republican competition, and of course Stacey Abrams and Senator Warnock both had their Democratic lanes to themselves, and Governor Kemp was running. In this cycle, we have at least a dozen legit contenders. On the Republican Senate side, there's no front runner in my view. These fundraising reports that just came out showed that both Congressman Mike Collins and former football coach Derek Dooley raised about the same money. Then you add in there Congressman Buddy Carter, who can self-fund his own campaign. Money isn't everything, but right now it's a really important early gauge of where things are. And so right now it seems like it's a free-for-all on the Republican side.
And you speak about those numbers. We have those numbers. We can pull them up so that our audience can see them as well. Stephen, let's bring you in on the conversation. Greg talked about the numbers on the Republican side, but looking at who they're going against, Jon Ossoff, I mean, that is a lot of money. We're talking, I believe, 21 million cash on hand. How do they, go against that?
Yeah, it's about a 10-to-1 cash advantage right now. I mean, I agree with everything Greg said. I will say that I don't think that anybody expected Congressman Collins to raise that money to basically be equal with Derek Dooley, who has the backing of Governor Kemp. So I think that's good news for his campaign. I still think that he is the odds-on favorite at this point. But again, it is very jumbled. And again, every day that goes by that there is not a coalesced, unified candidate in that race, the larger the disparity grows between Senator Ossoff's war chest and the Republican candidates.
Fred, are Democrats watching this and sort of the inverse of exactly what Stephen said? Are Democrats watching and thinking, boy, I hope this goes on as long as possible?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I hope they all raise about $2 million each, and fight it out, duke it out, go into a runoff and just bloody themselves up. That's good for Senator Ossoff, because the thing is that Senator Ossoff is able to continue doing his job, which is working on behalf of and delivering for Georgians while they're sitting there competing over, who's going to get a spot. And so
but is there, Greg, sometimes a flip side to that too, where the primary process sharpens candidates, it draws out and makes them, I mean, being a candidate itself is a skill set. Does
really
a competitive primary make them, whoever emerges, that much stronger?
It could. It could sharpen their rhetoric. It could help them appeal to different audiences, make them work. But Senator Ossoff is also already working, right? He's had multiple rallies. He's raising, this past quarter, as we saw those numbers, $12 million in just one quarter. That's going to be among the top in the nation for anyone, not just in Georgia, but any federal candidate.
Yeah, and Stephen, I just want to bring you in here because a big popular saying is money doesn't win campaigns, voters do. We saw this last year with Vice President Kamala Harris. We saw this with Stacey Abrams. I mean, how important is it really?
It is very important. It's not everything, but it's a lot. And to Greg's point, when you have every statewide ballot, every statewide office on the ballot, it's incumbent on these politicians to raise the money, to break through, to get out there and make their voice heard. So it's not the end-all be-all, but it will be very, very important. And I do think that disparity that's growing between Senator Ossoff and the Republican candidates is something to watch. Now, I will caveat that by saying that he's going to need it because he is the most vulnerable Democrat on the map, and he is the only Democrat incumbent up in a state that Donald Trump won.
With that, we're going to take a pause here, gentlemen. We'll be right back on the other side of the commercial break. Welcome back. This week, candidates vying to unseat Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens sounded off at the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young mayoral debate. Consultant Helmut Love Domagalski, former police officer Kalima Jackson, and community advocate Eddie Andrew Meredith, they all took part. And as moderator, I asked the candidates about the incumbent who declined to participate. Many in the political circles believe that Mayor Andre Dickens is the clear frontrunner for this race. You all are hoping to unseat him. In your opinion, what did Mayor Dickens get wrong, and what would you do day one if you're elected? We'll start with Mr. Domagowski.
Yeah, I think Mayor Dickens represents what the system creates. It's a corrupt sort of system, and he's just the next puppet in that system. I think that this is about unseating that. And really making a commitment to bring all the ideas to the table.
These roadways, these streets, these damaged streets, and also the water and the sewage. These are areas that need our attention, and they need repair, and they need repair as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Why don't our teachers have a place that work in the city of Atlanta? Why don't our police officers, our firefighters, why do they live outside of the city of Atlanta under our current administration? Why is that? Why can't they afford? Affordability is so important. Inflation right now in the city of Atlanta is at an all-time high.
Now, Mayor Dickens did not participate in this debate. It was represented by an empty podium per debate rules. I did reach out to the mayor's office to see why he declined. I did not receive a response. Election day is on November 4th.
Now, that same day, there are two statewide races to be decided. Both are for seats on the Public Service Commission. The PSC oversees utilities like Georgia Power and sets the rates for customers who pay for electricity. The commission also regulates broadband and railroads across Georgia. Now, here are the races on the ballot, with early voting beginning Tuesday. Even though the commission seats are separated into districts, all Georgia voters will see both races on their ballots. In District 2, Republican incumbent Tim Echols will face Democrat Alicia Johnson. And in District 3, the incumbent is Republican Fitz Johnson, whose challenger is Democrat Peter Hubbard. Well, we are back now with our panel, and there was an event Tuesday night in Forsyth County, a rally for the two Republican PSC incumbents. Greg, we know you were there as well as our crew. There's a lot of talk that night about how Republicans are bracing for this to be a low turnout election, and they say they are aware of how they need to turn out Republican voters, especially when there's nothing else statewide on the ballot. Here's what Governor Brian Kemp said at that rally Tuesday night.
That is our biggest liability in this race, as a lot of the speakers have talked about, is people just don't know what's going on. They don't know how important it is, and the Democrats want it to stay that way. The thing is, all the people standing behind me, myself and the First Lady and our family, we know how important this is.
Okay, maybe an unpopular question here, maybe a popular, depending on where you sit. I've heard a lot from folks in the political space about how the PSC race is supposed to be and might be a bellwether of what's to come in 2026. Greg, do you agree with that?
I don't know if it's a bellwether because the turnout's going to be so low, 2.5% turnout during the primary, so it's very marginal. Yeah. But Republicans see a lot of warning signs flashing. There's legit concern from senior Republicans, as you just heard from Governor Kemp, but all the way down the aisle, worried that they could lose these seats. This was the first down-ticket statewide loss for Republicans, not counting the U.S. Senate races, since 2006. And whether or not it's a bellwether, Democrats would take a victory and say it's a bellwether, right? They could use that to raise more money, to prove some momentum going into the midterms.
Stephen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bellwether, but I do think that they are facing an uphill battle. Look, on the turnout game,
the incumbents facing an uphill battle.
They are basically fighting a turnout battle where they are fighting hundreds of municipal elections across the state in predominantly Democrat areas that are going to be turning out Democrat votes, and it's just the two of them on the ticket. So it's a little bit of a David and Goliath, as ironic as that may be. I think it's going to be close, but look, I think if you're a Republican, you've got to get out and vote for these guys if you want to keep your energy rates the same. But it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
And even though this is a relatively small race that has a big impact in the state, Fred, I want to bring you in here because messaging, Democrats could truly use this in the midterms as messaging.
Well, absolutely.
If they are successful, of course.
Absolutely. So I'm not sure I agree with Greg and Stephen here. I'm not sure it's a bellwether, but there are two things to keep in mind. Number one, these seats are for 6 years. So you're talking about having Democrats in very key positions for a long time.
If they win.
If they win, right? And then, well, if Stephen makes an interesting point, and a point that if I were messaging with the Democrats, or for the Democrats, I would bring it out, that if you want your race to stay the same, which is after 4, 5, 6, 7 successive rate hikes that the PSC has never said no to, then yeah, vote for the two Republicans. If you want to reduce your energy race and diversify your energy portfolio, then vote a different way. But I don't know that there's been a lot of noise.
They did vote for the rate freezes. They did vote for that for the next 3 years.
For the next 4 years, after, what, 6 straight rate increases? And so I think at this point, unfortunately, there's not a lot of noise about either of these seats right now. So even though there's a lot of information, and as Stephen pointed out, the natural environment would favor a Democrat, Democrats also do not have any problem skipping seats on elections, going and voting for one thing and not voting for anything else. And so it's really a toss-up. But if Democrats vote the full ballot, then we could have a good day. We as Democrats could have a good day.
Definitely have to see. On that note, we're going to take a break here. Thank you so much for being on panel this week. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Well, this week, specifically on Tuesday, October 7th, marked the 2-year anniversary of Hamas and other Palestinian militant groups attacking southern Israel from the Gaza Strip. An estimated 1,200 people died.
Israel responded with its own offensive in Gaza, but now there are hopes that a ceasefire will hold and an exchange of hostages could happen as early as this week. In Atlanta, the American Jewish Committee joined several other groups in organizing an event last Sunday night to remember the October 7th attack.
It's been a very challenging 2 years, and so being here today brings back all of those memories immediately on October 7th, but also a reminder of all that we have been going through over the past 2 years since.
President Trump says that the hostages held by Hamas could be freed by Monday or Tuesday.
Our voice of the voter speaks with his hands, turning hard objects into something graceful. How this relates to our political system, that's next. Welcome back. We say it every week. You can't have the Georgia vote without Georgia voters. This week, we meet up with Nelms Creekmer, who runs a blacksmith shop in DeKalb County.
So this is my blacksmith shop, and this is where I heat metal, and hammer it, and bend it and scroll it.
When you're working on the metal, where does your head go?
There's something magic to me about elegant shape. So trying to take a hard object such as metal and then working it until it becomes something elegant, something graceful.
What do you wish people could learn from spending a little bit more time doing the kind of thing that you do?
So if you think about these physical objects and how you can make them nicer, I think that can help you ground yourself in your thoughts about culture, politics, this type of thing. Like, just look for what's real.
When you look at politics right now, what's the number one issue you hope your elected leaders address?
We as a country need to continue to engage with other countries on all different levels. U.S. contributions to the rest of the world can make the rest of the world a stronger place. And that helps us live in a safer, stronger world, so our country can also be safer and stronger.
What do you worry the most about when you look at the state of our politics?
What worries me a lot is I see a continuing, increasing diminishment of the two major parties reaching out and talking with each other, finding compromise, so reaching across the aisle.
We always end with this question: what are you most optimistic about?
I like that last question because I think optimism is crucial, always, especially now. I've always really respected and admired the social and political experiment of democracy. And of course, especially the one in my own country, the United States. I'm really, really proud of it, and I think it's a very beautiful and strong thing we've made here. And I think that's going to pull us through these difficult times. You know, I think there's a lot of polarization now, a lot of demonization, a lot of tests on the fabric of our Constitution. So what I think is that we have a history of surmounting great things and working together.
And our thanks to Nelms for sharing his shop and his space and, of course, his perspective with us.
Really love it. And I love that last question, too. We love optimism. We hope to see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote. Have a great day.
We'll see you then.